Zoran Mandani is a liar, and I'm going to prove it to you next. There are so many problems with every one of his policies, but today in this video, we're going to talk specifically about his plan to make buses free.
My name is Zoran Mandani. My occupation is assembly member. I represent about 130,000 people who live in Astoria and Long Island City, and I'm running to be the next mayor of New York City.
What's your experience as a New York City bus rider?
So I grew up in Morningside Heights. I would take the one train from 116 to 231st to then take the BX10 to go to high school at Bronx Science. And the BX10 was a bus that I knew even if it was 2 or 3 stops away, I could still run and catch it. You should not be able to catch a bus if you're 2 or 3 stops behind. But across the city, the average speed of a bus is 8 miles an hour. And that's why they are the slowest buses in the United States of America. And that's why a big part of our campaign has been to make these buses fast and to make these buses free.
He wants to make buses fast and he wants to make them free. Unfortunately, neither of those things are going to happen. Here he is with Martha McCallum, where she talks about the most obvious issue whenever something is made free.
Let's take a look at the free buses issue just for a moment, because I know you said that the pilot project that you did was one of the biggest accomplishments of being an assemblyman. The Washington Post said this in an editorial about this. Quality inevitably declines when a service is offered for free. Vagrants and drug addicts would camp out all day on New York's buses, especially in the winter. Parents would go afraid to let their children ride alone. Wealthier residents would find another way to get around, but poor New Yorkers who depend on the bus would suffer the most.
That was the liberal Washington Post. Even they recognize that free buses are going to attract vagrants and homeless like a magnet. I don't like Cuomo, but he got it right when he said the following.
It's been done before in other cities. It was a disaster. They stopped. They basically became mobile, homeless, gathering places.
He's absolutely right. Any economist knows that when you make something free, the quality goes down. And like he said, it's been tried in other places and it's been a disaster. Portland tried this program back in 1975, and after 37 years, it finally ended it in 2012, citing problems with security, safety, and crime. They weren't the only one. Implementing fare-free buses in Tucson, Arizona also led to an increase in crime, where bus drivers and riders reported a sharp increase in assaults and a general perception of lawlessness on city buses. We have become a mobile refuge from the elements, frequented by drug users, the mentally ill, and violent offenders that have made Suntran unsafe to ride. Kansas City also got rid of fare-free buses, not just because of an increase in crime, but they realized they couldn't afford it. And speaking of not being able to afford it, how are we going to pay for this? Here is Kristen Welker asking him that very question.
Of course, the big question is, how are you going to pay for it? You've proposed increasing taxes on wealthier New Yorkers. The Democratic governor, though, of your state, Kathy Hochul, says she's not going to support increasing taxes in order to get it across the finish line. I want to let you take a listen to a little bit of what she had to say recently and respond on the other side. Here she is.
I'm not raising taxes on people at a time when affordability is the big issue. I'm actually cutting middle-class taxes.
Even on the wealthy.
I don't want to lose any more people to go to Palm Beach. We've lost enough.
How are you going to raise taxes if you can't get Democrats to support it?
So I think what we've shown over the last 8 months is our ability to take that which is considered a non-starter and make it seem inevitable. We've shown that with this campaign, and ultimately we're seeing that our vision to tax the top 1% of New Yorkers, these are New Yorkers who make $1 million a year or more, and our proposal is to just tax them by 2% additional, is something that has broad support and will continue to increase that support over the next few months and years.
The question was, how are you going to raise taxes when the governor says she won't do it? And his response is, we're going to raise taxes on the top 1% by 2%. That's a non-answer. Just like all the corrupt Democrats, he refuses to answer the question. Martha McCallum asked him the same thing. See if you can hear him answer. I didn't.
Governor Hochul, you would have to get approval from the legislature to raise individual taxes, income taxes, and also corporate taxes in New York, which you've said you would like to do in order to pay for the free buses and the free child care and the different programs, the government grocery stores and the like. She says no new taxes in her governor's race. So what are you going to do if she won't allow taxes to be raised? How will you pay for these programs?
You know, I've said time and again that I believe these are the most straightforward ways that we can actually fund universal childcare, making buses fast and free. And I've said that the two clear ways to do so, raising personal income taxes on the top 1% by 2%, and raising the corporate tax to match that of New Jersey's corporate tax of 11.5%. Now, if there are other ways to raise this money to fund this agenda, the most important thing is that we fund the agenda. I still think that these are the most important and clear ways we can do it. And I'm thankful to have Governor Hochul's support in this race and the fact that she said we have a shared commitment to delivering universal child care.
Again, how are you going to raise taxes when Hochul pledged not to? And his response is exactly the same. We're going to raise taxes on the top 1% by 2%. And I'm glad to have Hochul's support. She knows he's dodging, so she has to ask him again.
The question is, how do you pay for it? The city's already in debt. The governor says no to new taxes. Like Margaret Thatcher said, you know, socialism's great until you run out of everyone else's money, other people's money.
Well, what Andrew Cuomo said is that if he had $959 million, he'd give it to Elon Musk in tax credits, because that's exactly what he did. And I bring that up to you to say that it's often a question of whether you have the willingness to spend that money to benefit working class people, not where that money is in the first place.
So what would you cut? What would you draw from to do it?
You see what he did? He got Martha to move away from her original question. He jumped over the question of how he's going to get Hochul on board and now has her asking about specific line items in a budget, even though his imaginary budget is based on increased tax revenue that Hochul says she wants no part of. She made it clear she is not raising taxes. Here she is saying it again.
Governor Hochul vows to help pull New York City back from the edge of the fiscal abyss that it's facing. But there's one thing she won't do to help the city close a $7 billion gap.
Governor Hochul says she's really concerned about a possible drop in public safety that could result from the mayor's proposed budget cuts. But in terms of what she's willing to do, let's just say it was a total read my lips moment.
I'm not raising taxes in our budget this year. Taxes are high enough in the state of New York, and we have to live within our means.
She couldn't be more clear. She is not raising taxes, but he needs her to raise taxes to pay for the free buses. So how's he going to do it? He never explained it. He never explained it to Martha. He never explained it to Kristen. And they asked him again in the debate. And again, he just doesn't answer.
New Yorkers deserve more than the slowest buses in the country. I know that because I was on the M57 not too long ago, and its average speed is 4.9 miles an hour.
We're at time, though, but the question is how you'll make them free.
We will fund the revenue that would have otherwise been brought in from fares, and that's something that we would do in partnership with Albany, and I've put forward two proposals. The first is to raise taxes on the top 1% of New Yorkers by 2%. That would raise $4 billion. The second is to raise the state's top corporate tax rate to match that of New Jersey, which would raise $5 billion.
We're going to move along, but I just want to point out to viewers that Governor Hochul has opposed raising the income tax.
That's it. She says Governor Hochul opposes raising the income tax. No follow-up, and they let him get away without answering. I think Mandani and Hochul had to have a private conversation about this. Hochul may be saying, yes, I will raise taxes, I just can't say it now because I'm up for re-election. Or she might be saying, I'm going to keep my promise, I'm not raising taxes, but you say what you need to do to get elected. One of them has to be lying. Now let's go back to the interview with Martha. Listen to his advice for his critics.
Well, I would say that they should actually look at the report of the 5 free buses we delivered across New York City.
He says his critics should read the report prepared by the MTA about the fare-free buses. I read it, and we're going to go through it next. But first, listen to his theory about why bus drivers are being assaulted.
If you talk to bus drivers, you'll hear again and again that a significant number of assaults are tied to the fare box.
Mamdani believes that bus drivers are arguing with passengers over paying the fare, and some of those arguments have led to the bus driver being assaulted. So if you take away the fare requirement, the number of assaults on bus drivers should decrease. Listen to the figure he gives about how much assaults went down under his program.
We didn't see an increase in homelessness. We did see an increase in New Yorkers riding the bus. We did see a decrease in assaults on bus drivers by 38.9%.
He said the number of assaults on bus drivers went down 38.9%. You heard him say that, right? I'm going to take you through the report that he wants us to read and prove to you that he's lying. You can see the program consists of 5 separate bus routes, 1 in each borough, and all of them free. The pre-pilot program was from September of 22 to August of 23, and the pilot program was the same period, but the following year. None of the passengers on these buses had to pay a fare. Now remember, he told Martha that the number of assaults on bus drivers were down by 38.9%. right? But you can see the number of assaults before the program was implemented was 47, and the number of assaults during the program was 32. This represents a decline of 31.9%, not 38.9%, as he told Martha. And by the way, if you think this was an honest mistake he told Martha during this interview, you should know that he's been using the same exact figure while campaigning.
We decreased assaults on bus drivers by 38.9%.
As a state legislator, I won $15 million to fund a first-of-its-kind fare-free bus pilot that led to a 30% increase in weekday ridership and a 38.9% decrease in assaults on bus drivers.
And he even said it during the debate.
Making buses free doesn't just provide economic relief, but also public safety, because what we've seen is that it decreases assaults on bus drivers by 38.9%.
It's a lie. He's lying just like every other Democrat. And we proved it by going through the report that he's been citing. But he's not just lying, he's also misleading, because that decrease in assaults doesn't tell us the full story. Remember, we're comparing the number of assaults that ended in the year 2023 to the number of assaults that ended in the year 2024. Here's what I mean. While the number of assaults went down by 31.9% on the fare-free buses, the number of assaults on all buses went down 15.4%. Meaning, the number of assaults on your bus drivers didn't decrease simply because of the program. They went down because the city had gotten safer, at least when it comes to assaults on bus drivers. Therefore, the net decrease in the number of assaults are down only 16.5%. A far cry from the 38.9% you've been telling everyone. But there's something else to consider. These assaults include physical and verbal assaults. You and I both know there is no such thing as a verbal assault. You can verbally harass someone, but you cannot verbally assault them. They created this special category specifically for this program. So the 32 assaults listed in this report do not differentiate between someone being physically assaulted and someone being verbally harassed. Meaning we could have actually had an increase in physical assaults, but because this report does not distinguish between the two and combines them in one total, that increase in physical assaults could be hidden and we would never know about it. Now listen to him lie about fare evasion.
The Citizens Budget Commission said just last year, 2024, $1 billion of fare evasion in all different forms. This MTA system will collapse. There's not enough money out there to make up for fare evasion.
You know, this is something that we heard when we were fighting to make buses free in Albany when we delivered the first fare-free bus lines in New York City history. And what we saw is when we made one bus route free in each borough of New York City, there was no increase in homelessness on those buses. There was no increase in fare evasion in the surrounding area.
He says two things. One is a lie and the other is misleading. The first thing is there wasn't an increase in homelessness. He said the same thing to Martha McCallum. How would you know? You don't track it in the report. You track verbal assaults, but there's no caption for homelessness. When you're not tracking something, you're never going to see an increase in it. So that statement is incredibly misleading. Now for the lie. He said there wasn't an increase in fare evasion in surrounding areas, right? Not according to the report. Under the caption, the rate of fare evasion on nearby bus routes and subway stations, we can see that during school months, fare evasion went up 8.1%, and in the summer months, fare evasion went up 10.4%. Another lie, proven by the report that he wants you to read. Did he not think we were going to read it? It's 20 pages. It took me 10 minutes to realize this guy was full of shit. Now listen to the commie say that making buses free somehow makes them faster.
Mamdani says as mayor, he'd make buses free. Riders could skip the lines, use all the doors to board quickly, and finally get moving.
Without hyperbole, the slowest buses in the country, 8 miles an hour. We could have this interview walking alongside it and still get there before the bus. Unlike on the subway, when you pay your fare, you're doing so on the bus. The act of doing so or not doing so, it impedes and impacts the ability of the bus to actually operate.
All-door boarding. All-door boarding would reduce dwell time at bus stops. In Boston, we saw they reduced dwell time by 23%. Instead of everyone having to congregate at the front of the bus, everyone could come on and off at any door on that bus. That speeds things up.
Notice he said dwell time was reduced in Boston, but he doesn't mention New York. Why is that? Well, in New York, dwell time actually increased. During school months, dwell time increased by 7%, and in the summer months, it increased by 8.2%. Not only did it take people longer to get on and off the fare-free bus, but those buses also traveled at a slower speed. Bus speeds decreased by 2.2% during school months and 4.3% during the summer. So let's recap. So far, he's lying about the assaults on bus drivers. He's lying about there not being an increase in nearby fare evasion. He's lying when he says the fare-free buses are faster. He's lying when he says people are able to get on and off the bus quicker. And he's lying about how we're going to pay for it. This is just one policy. Look at all the lies he's told. Imagine when we dig deeper into his other policies, which I'm going to do in the next video. Now, if you cannot afford the fare, New York City has programs that can help. Here's Curtis.
Pay your fare. If you don't pay your fare, they have fare programs for the poor and the indigent. But everybody should be forced to pay their fare.
They have programs for the poor. I didn't know that, but it's true. If you are 65 or older, have a disability, or are in a low income bracket, you pay half price to ride the bus. By the way, did you notice that you need to show ID in order to qualify for this? Do the Democrats think that this is racist, or does that only apply to voting? So Curtis is right. And again, I despise Cuomo, but he makes a good point. Take a listen.
What I say is free buses for working families who can't afford it and free subways for working families. But don't subsidize rich people.
So Cuomo is saying, let's base it on income. But the comma is saying, no, I want to give free buses to everybody, regardless of income. And while he claims this will increase the number of low-income riders the most, his pilot program actually had the opposite effect. You can see that the number of riders making less than $28,000 a year went down 2 percentage points. And the number of riders making more than $100,000 a year went up 2 percentage points. So that's another thing he's misleading you about. One final point. It would be helpful to know just how important this issue is to New Yorkers. Luckily, we do. The MTA asked their bus riders what would increase their overall satisfaction on New York City buses. What do you think the number one response was? Wait times. They're waiting too long for the bus. It ranked number 1 on that list. We just learned that dwell time increased under his pilot program, and those buses traveled at a slower speed. So wait times are going to increase. The number 1 issue affecting New York City bus riders, according to those riders, is going to be made worse if he implements this plan. Now let's go back to the list. What do you think is number 2? Overcrowding. Do you think the buses are going to be more crowded when they're free or less crowded? They're going to be packed, which would make the number 2 issue on that list worse for New Yorkers. Do you know where the cost of the fare ranks on that list? 8th. New Yorkers do not care about this issue. This is just another example of liberal Democrats telling people what they should care about. So why is he doing this? Why is he making this an essential part of his campaign, knowing that Hochul is not going to give him the money to fund it? Did you ever hear of the phrase, if it's free, it's for me? Free buses sounds really good. And even though he knows he's not going to get this done, he's promising a lot of free stuff, hoping that you vote for him. I'm praying that you don't. Please vote for Curtis Sliwa. He is the only person that will save New York City. Mandani is Bill de Blasio on steroids. He will destroy it. Curtis Sliwa is our only hope. That's all I got for you on this one. Please join me in the next video. We're going to dive deeper into his policies. Thank you for staying to the end. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.
I just can't understand. Do you think that there's any chance mathematically that you win?
Absolutely. And let me tell you something. The billionaires have been wrong about this election from day one. They give me vertigo. First they were with Cuomo. Then they ran over to Eric Adams. Oh, how did that work out? He's one and done. He belongs in jail. He's the reason that there is a Zoran Mandani, because if he had done a halfway decent job, he would have been the incumbent Democratic mayor. It would have been round 2 because I ran against him the last time in 2021. And I warned everybody he would be corrupt and there would be chaos. And it would be Sliwa versus Adams. Adams failed. Cuomo failed. That's how you have a Zoran Mandani.
We came here to remake this state in the image of our people.